last day of the SPAC forum, Liste. We are very happy to welcome Sandra Mujinga. We're going to see a performance. You are all performed by Mariama and Ndure and Terese Mungai-Foyn.
Hello, my name is Solokama. I am based in Mamuk. I have for the longest time been working with moving images, but now I primarily work with text. And I'm going to speak more about this later. I teach at Nyase Art School, and besides that, I like expanding my practice through working with other artists. I also curate shows and write for Whatmosa magazine. A couple of years ago, I curated a group show titled You Are All We Need in Gogo Bailey, and I'm currently working on a show that will open in a couple of months in Mamuk.
My name is Talazomi, and I'm an artist who generally works with sculptures, but I also use text in my work. I started producing work that was inspired by closure, thinking through and about closure. After what happened in Gogo Bailey, there was a general interest in wanting to work through the event by having exhibitions. I like to materialize my ideas through work with text. Text as something physical, letters having a start and an end in themselves. Recently, I've been working with books and publishing. I, like many artists, spend a lot of time thinking about what is art, or what would it be like for me. One of these overall methods that I find very interesting is hosting distortions. Doing that allows me to be able to take more risks. What I find striking about your work is perhaps self-annihilation. For the longest time, video was seen as the medium that would surpass us. Having objects in the room seemed excessive.
Yeah, I remember the artist Didi Ongwanashi would basically exhibit their editing materials open, and whoever came to the exhibition would be able to edit, even delete parts of the work that was there, or do so later when they got home. So the work was being produced there and then, and maybe always just temporary. It seemed cheesy at the time, but the work was never meant to be finished. A work had to be produced within a limited amount of time and disappear. It was like we all agreed that video told lies, and the artist did not want to tell more lies.
Right. I remember it was almost like a panic. Unlike our ancestors, we were no longer interested in documenting the truth. With that work, the truth was something not fixed. The work was created there and then. Is that why you stopped working with moving images? You needed a truth? You were tired of telling lies?
The last video I made was very short, very rich, like the volcanic soil it tried to capture. Still not convincing, or maybe it doesn't show, but what I actually was trying to do was document what was going on, a truth, because it was all so terrifying. But I could only manage to capture a few seconds, and with too much movement and people running everywhere, the video became too dark. But you could still hear the panic.
I don't know how or why we remained when we all knew that it only took 10 seconds for everything to be swept down by the lava. Why didn't we just leave? I don't know. I keep on asking myself that. Sorry, I never meant to imply that. It's just, I know it would have been worse if we were next to the lake.
So what is left of documentation is edited. Imagine if we just stopped editing images. I had tried for the longest time to document how people were living near that lake. Either way, the measures of carbon dioxide could not be visible. You could get punished for making them visible, and so that's why I left.
Yes. Editing our images was like preparing for the afterlife. You know, the way our ancestors would prepare the grave, the makeup, items to be buried with. Except, we did not want to be recognized. In the end, there was no longer an image that looked like us, and mirrors had been removed a long time ago.
My name is Solon Kama. I'm based in Mamuk, and I have for the longest time been working with moving images, but now I primarily work with text. I'll talk more about this later. I have for the longest time, thought about, I teach at Nyata Art School, and besides that, I like expanding my practice through working with other artists. I also curate shows and write for Moza magazine. A couple of years ago, I curated a group show titled You Are All You Need in Kokobeli, and I'm currently working with a show that will open in a couple of months in Mamuk.
My name is Talazumi, and I'm an artist based in Kokobeli. I primarily work with sculptures, but I also use text, I started producing work that was inspired by closure, thinking through and about closure. After what happened in Kokobeli, there was a general interest in wanting to work through the event by having exhibitions. I like to materialize my ideas through work with text. Text as something physical, letters having a start and an end in themselves. Recently, I've been working with books and publishing. I, like many of us artists, spend a lot of time thinking about what does it mean to be an artist? Or what does it mean to me? One of these overall methods that I find very interesting is hosting distortions. Doing that allows me to be able to take more risks. What I find striking about your work is, what's the word? Self-annihilation. For the longest time, video was seen as the medium that would surpass us. Having objects in the room seemed excessive.
Yeah. I remember the artist Didi Onkonashi would basically exhibit their editing materials open, and whoever came to the exhibition would be able to edit, even delete parts of the work that was there, or do so later when they got home. So the work was being produced there and then, and maybe always just temporary. It seemed cheesy at the time, but the work was never meant to be finished. A work had to be produced within a limited amount of time and disappear. It was as if we all agreed that video was telling lies and the artist did not want to tell more lies.
Right? I remember it was almost like a panic. Unlike our ancestors, we were no longer interested in documenting the truth. With that work, the truth was something not fixed. The work was created then and there. Is that why you stopped working with moving images? You needed a truth. You were tired of telling lies. Maybe.
The last video I made was very short, very rich, like the volcanic soil it tried to capture. Still not convincing, or maybe it doesn't show, but I tried to actually document what was going on, a truth, because it was also terrifying. But I could only manage to capture a few seconds. Too much movement and people were running everywhere. The video just became too dark. But you can still hear the panic.
I'm not sure how or why. Why did we leave? When we all knew that it only took 10 seconds for everything to be swept down by the lava. Why didn't we just leave? I don't know. But I keep on asking myself.
My name is Solon Kama, and I am based in Mamuk. I have for the longest time been working with moving images, but now I primarily work with text. I'll talk more about this later. I teach at Nyasa Art School, and besides that, I like expanding my practice through working with other artists. I also curate shows and write for Woodmosa magazine. A couple of years ago, I curated a group show titled You Are All You Need in Gogobeli. And I'm currently working on a show that will open in a few months in Mamuk.
My name is Talazumi, and I am an artist based in Gogobeli, and I primarily work with sculptures, but I also use text in my work. I started producing work that was inspired by closure, thinking through and about closure. After what happened in Gogobeli, there was a general interest in wanting to work through the event by having exhibitions. I like to materialize my ideas through working with text. Text as something physical? You know, letters having a start and an end in themselves. Recently, I've been working with books and publishing. I, like many artists, spend a lot of time, thinking about what it means to be an artist, or what would it be like for me? One of these overall methods that I find quite quite interesting is hosting distortions. Doing that allows me to take more risks. What I find striking about your work is self-annihilation. For the longest time, video was seen as the medium that would surpass us. Having objects in the room seemed kind of excessive.
Yeah, I remember the artist Didi Ongwanashi would basically exhibit their edited materials open, and whoever came to the exhibition would be able to edit, even delete parts of the work that was there, or do so later when they got home. So the work was being produced there and then. Or maybe always just temporary. It seemed cheesy at the time, but the work was never meant to be finished. Our work had to be produced within a limited amount of time and disappear. It was like we all agreed that video told lies, and the artist didn't want to tell more lies.
Right. I remember that it was almost like a panic. Unlike our ancestors, we were no longer interested in documenting the truth. With that work, the truth was something not fixed. The work was created there and then. Is that why you stopped working with moving images? You needed a truth. You were tired of perhaps telling lies.
The last video I made was very short, very rich. Like the volcanic soil it tried to capture, still not convincing, or it doesn't show. I tried to actually document what was going on, a truth, because it was all so terrifying. But I could only manage to capture a few seconds. Too much movement and people running everywhere. The video became too dark, but you could still hear the panic.
I don't know how or why we remained when we all knew it only took 10 seconds for everything to be swept down by the lava. Why didn't we just leave? I know. But I keep on asking myself that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply. It's just that I know it would have been worse if we were next to a lake.
What is left of documentation is edited. Imagine if we just stopped editing images. I had tried for the longest time to document how people were living near that lake. Either way, the measures of carbon dioxide could not be made visible. You could get punished for making them visible. That's why I left.
Yes. Editing our images was like preparing for the afterlife. You know, the way our ancestors would prepare their grave. The makeup, items to be buried with. except we did not want to be recognized. In the end, there was no longer an image that looked like us, and mirrors had been removed a long time ago.
My name is Solom Kama. I am based in Mamuk. I have for the longest time been working with moving images, but now I primarily work with text. I'll talk more about this later. I teach at Nyata Art School, and besides that, I like expanding my practice through working with other artists. I also curate shows and write for Woodmosa magazine. A couple of years ago, I curated a group show titled You Are All You Need in Gogo Bailey. And I'm currently working on a show that will open in a couple of months in Mamuk.
My name is Talazumi, and I am an artist based in Gogo Bailey, and I primarily work with sculptures, but I also use text in my work. I started producing work that was inspired by closure, thinking through and about closure. After what happened in Gogo Bailey, there was a general interest in wanting to work through the event by having exhibitions. I like to materialize my ideas through working with text as something physical, letters, having a start and an end in themselves. And recently, I've been working with publishing. I, like many artists, spend a lot of time thinking about what does it mean to be an artist? Or what is it to be an artist for me? One of these overall methods I find interesting is hosting distortions. Doing that allows me to be able to take more risks. What I find striking about your work is maybe self-annihilation. For the longest time, video was seen as the medium that would surpass us. Having objects in the room seemed excessive.
I remember the artist Didi Okwanashi would basically exhibit the editing materials open, and whoever came to the exhibition would be able to edit, even delete parts of the work that was there, or do so later when they got home. So the work was being produced there and then, and maybe always just temporary. It seemed cheesy at the time, but the work was never meant to be finished. A work had to be produced within a limited amount of time and disappear. It's like we all agree that video told lies, and the artist did not want to lie anymore.
Right. I remember it was almost like a panic. Unlike our ancestors, we were no longer interested in documenting the truth. The truth, that work was just something that was not fixed. The work was created there and then. Is that why you stopped working with moving images? You needed a truth. You were tired of telling lies.
The last video I made was very short, very rich, like the volcanic soil it tried to capture. Still not convincing, or maybe it does not show, but I tried to actually document what was going on, a truth, because it was also terrifying. But I only managed to capture a few seconds. And with too much movement and people were running everywhere, the video became too dark, but you could still hear the panic.
I don't know how or why we remained when we all knew that it only took 10 seconds for everything to be swept down by the lava. Why didn't we just leave? I know. But I keep on asking myself that.
The pools made me relaxed. Maybe they also functioned as a mirror. I was always so thirsty though. But all we did was stare at it. We couldn't drink it. Maybe if it was cooked. We were all so tired and stony. It became a difficult environment to work in. And when we were in smaller groups, I would realize that I was not the only one thinking this. I think social media made people more human.
Yeah, like, for example, when you see the love your cold colleague has for their dog, or the same colleague posting a vulnerable love declaration to someone who could respond in a language we all could understand. We were all used to that though. It just stopped. And now all of a sudden it became so embarrassing. Like, I would meet this stony colleague that you're describing here and just feel super sensitive. And I would also just hate how the thickness of my skin would be questioned by the form of gaslighting instead of trying to understand the underlying violence that came from these spaces. Amnesia, amnesia, did you forget that I don't need ya? My name is Talazoni, and I am an artist based in Gogo Baby, and I primarily work with sculptures, but I also use text in my work. I started producing work that was inspired by closure, thinking through and about closure. After what happened in Gogo Baby, there was a general interest in wanting to work through the event by having exhibitions. I like to materialize my ideas through working with text as something physical. Letters having a start and an end in themselves. And recently, I've been working with books and publishing.
The eruption almost had an architectural spread and feel to it, still causing the ground to fracture. I remember there were dead flies everywhere because they were drawn to the light. And when they got too close, their wings would get burned and the heat would just take them out. The disappearance has to be negotiated in relation to power, an illusion of power. You know, people would see themselves as a martyr, as in there was no point for them having a visible life if they merely existed to be consumed. They might as well disappear to the forest. No one really knows what the forest is. My moods are so private, you know.
We don't have to talk about it.
Like, am I fighting right now? Am I exhausted?
You know, it's funny being here with you. I remember the floods of science fiction films that came out, you know, and I would be like, where are all the black people? Or where are we in this? Did we all disappear in the end? Did we all maybe disappear in the future? The screen became everything. So if we did not exist there, then we did not really exist.
See, I think that when you're not seeing so often, there isn't so much space to doubt. And so I decided to disappear under my own terms because I wanted to have a space to doubt. I couldn't doubt publicly because my body was underestimated and sometimes even overestimated for the wrong reasons. And since I couldn't doubt publicly, I couldn't really find like a language for it, like language needs to be exercised.
How to engage in equity. How to engage in historical responsibility.
Oh, I love that song. Yeah, like I really didn't think I would be the one to run and hide. But there just came a point where I didn't think it was worth it, you know, being seen, but not documented. Let alone for a month, a week, a day, a minute. My body just became heavier. My body started cleansing itself through sweat. Like, what does pride have to do with it? Pride is a weakness, I heard.
Right? And because of gaslighting, I started questioning my sensitivity, my sanity, how to discuss with someone when neither of those things are trusted. I think we need to read. Like, seriously?
But could it also be like, I am continuously thinking about my potential, like alternative versions of myself. I could have done this, I should have done that. Isn't that just life, like us trying to find the best versions of ourselves in any given time? Like, to survive.
You know the essay by Shinu Faruku, where we would follow someone not knowing which form they have for the outside world? They dive into the water, and then when they come up, they're no longer fish. What I assumed. And now all of a sudden, they can fly. Are they a bird? It's obvious I continue to make this character smaller and smaller with my guesses.
But is that how it goes though? I mean, I think I know what you're talking about, but maybe I'm just remembering it wrong, I don't know.
Distortion is fine. I have to be present in the distortions and then look at them as such. It all started with the guilt, you know, thinking of all the damages we had caused to other living beings. But at some point, I think we were trained in performing a guilt. Like, remember when you were a kid, right? And you knew you did something wrong. Like, you knew you were wrong. But then there's a part of you that really did not want to say sorry. But then you could still host that side of you and then say sorry. Like, okay then, I am sorry.
The disappearance has to be negotiated in relation to power or an illusion of power. Do you know people would see themselves as a martyr? As in there was no point for them to have a visible life, they might as well, just seem to exist and just disappear. To the forest. Like nobody even knows where the forest is.
Sometimes they would just say sorry. And I didn't even know where it came from. Like, what just happened? You know, people just throw around the word sorry. And sometimes you just need the chance to say, hey, when you did this specific thing, it did not sit right with me. And you just couldn't do that.
So what are you saying? Like, just to be clear?
That they don't know what they're sorry about. And I don't even know if that does anything for me anymore.
Well, I'm sorry.
Are you sorry? You know, I think you spend too much time with yourself. You need something clear. A clean message, a clear breakthrough. You need to feel safe. If you feel safe, we all feel safe. I am sorry you didn't